Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our latest weekly open coaching session. For those of you that may not know me, my name is Brian Doyle, and I'm one of the co-founders here at vCIOToolbox. And I'm excited to have everybody joining us this week to go through another topic that relates to everything vCIO. So today, one of the things I want to talk about is kind of the soft skills and the soft side of being a vCIO, really going out there and working with your clients and being the advocate they require. You know, as MSPs, we're often brought in as operational partners and certainly are the ones that are there to fix the problems that a customer may encounter. But sometimes I think we underestimate how much we can actually play into the leadership of the customer and really affect change and drive innovation and support them within their organization. You know, they're coming to us for a very, very specific reason. They don't have a vCIO. They don't have a technologist. They don't have that level of support today. So, we really have a huge opportunity out there to fill that gap and really help reinforce their needs. So I want to thank everybody for joining us today. For those that are on for the first time, these Tuesday coaching sessions are run every week by us. They're open coaching sessions. You do not need to just be a vCIOToolbox customer to join us. We hold these sessions both on Zoom. You can register there, or you can join us live in our Facebook group, the MSP Success Group. If you haven't joined there yet, I truly suggest that you do so. Replays of this will be posted to YouTube and within the portal, so you'll have an opportunity to see these things, but we'd love to have you join us live. That way you can participate, ask us questions. The format is simply we'll educate ourselves to something. We'll cover a lesson, whether it's something practical in vCIOToolbox, a tool that we can show you and dive deeper into, or something more soft skill like today where we'll talk a little bit about leadership. Following our lesson each week, we'll open up the floor for Ask Me Anything. There you can answer any or ask me questions about anything that might be on your mind, whether they're system related, account management related, technical security related, whatever the case may be. And I'll do my best to try to answer those. But, Ask Me Anything is truly that. Feel free to ask me anything. These sessions will run about a half an hour or until our Ask Me Anything questions answer. So this will give you a sense of how long to budget if this is your first time joining us. We've just started rolling out these sessions about 3 weeks ago, and we're excited to continue moving it forward over time. So welcome, everybody. Today, what I'm really going to talk about, though, is, as I mentioned, being a leadership to our customers and how we can grow the relationship by being a better leadership partner and better assisting them and helping guide them to all things needed technology. But the real key here is supporting it so they can see how it drives also their business. One of the things I hear often when I'm talking to MSPs and onboarding them into vCIOToolbox is that they feel that their QBRs are coming off a little bit too much as a sales session. Now look, we all know the outcome that we're trying to strive for here is a sales related outcome. We're building our roadmaps to kind of guide our customers hopefully to making those decisions. But there's a way to do it that comes off salesy, and there's a way to do it that comes off consultative. And the more we embrace really being their IT leader, the more that becomes a consultative process as opposed to a sales process. So one of the things that we have to change is kind of the dynamic we may have with some of our customers. We know our customers don't come in one shape or size, right? Some really already buy into us as the leader. But we may have other customers where we're struggling to move and elevate ourselves out of that commodity position, where really we're just their operational partner. When things break, they call us. When things get fixed, they don't call us. They're very quiet. And this is a very risky place to live. Many of you have probably heard me talk about the curse of the great MSP in the past. The curse of the great MSP is very simple. The more we automate and the more we do remotely, the less things break and the less we tend to be on site. And when that occurs, we can really be in a vulnerable spot with our customers, because just when we think we should be getting pats on the back for the efforts we did in the stabilization we may have did in their environment, the reality is the customer might be considering why they need us. They've spent $2,000, $5,000, $10,000 a month with us, and the perception is that we're not on site anymore and they no longer have the challenges they had in the past. So it's our job to really transition from that operational role and start teaching them how we can help them build their business and achieve the goals they set out for their organization. So how do we do that? Well, it starts first by building trust. And I'll be the first guy to say I'm not a big fan of the building or the trusted advisor monkey ear that's out there. It's become kind of cliche, but unfortunately that's really what we want them to do. Now you may say to me, a lot of my customers already trust us. They really feel that we are their IT partner, that we're really the ones that are helping them with guidance. And that's great. But one of the things that we often see there is they're also buying from us on pure blind faith. They may not understand what they're buying, but they feel comfortable that we're the ones telling them to do that. Now, while that can be great in the beginning, that perception can sometimes shift if they feel like they're spending too much money. Maybe you have one of those phases where a lot of refreshes come due and something breaks at that same period of time. And when that happens, it feels like they've outlaid a lot of capital. You can have changes in the team makeup at your client site. You may have a great relationship with the CEO, but they hire a new CFO or chief operating officer, and that person takes the reins in the relationship a little bit more. And they've got a different style, and when they look back at things, they may feel that there's been a little bit too much free reign for us as the MSP. So we really need to work at an approach in building that trust. For those of you that are using vCIOToolbox, this is really what that whole client strategy and business insights process is about. We want to get in front of our customers, understand the key initiatives that they're going after and the obstacles that might be in the way of whatever they perceive success to be. And then what we want to do is take that knowledge and then be able to use that to support as a business case those projects and services we integrate into the roadmap. But more importantly, we want to use those goals and challenges that they share with us to gain better understanding about what the client's objectives are, maybe get a little bit different look through the lens at what their point of view might be as they really are looking towards how to move their business forward. And then the final piece of that puzzle is then it really becomes the litmus test that we have to pass when we put recommendations and projects before them. If we can't prove out alignment between the project and the goals and objectives that we have jointly set forth in this strategic plan, then it probably shouldn't be in their roadmap. And that's a great way to also highlight, where we're pushing out things that might be too bleeding edge or leading edge for the customer, and really making sure that we're taking care of their base level needs, especially as it relates through optimizing security and performance. So building trust really comes from sometimes that addition through subtraction principle. If we're not putting something in the roadmap and we can demonstrate why we didn't put it in the roadmap, they start trusting the things that we do put into the roadmap a little bit more. The other thing that builds trust is really helping the customer make the more informed decision. As you know, a lot of our customers are small to mid-sized business owners. They really aren't IT pros. Some of them aren't even technologically savvy, right? So when we put these things before them, it's tough for them to connect the dots and really understand why they need to move forward and make this spend. And as each of you knows, we're in the technology business. Very few things that we ask them for cost very little, right? We usually start somewhere around 4 digits and can go to 5, 6, even 7, depending on the size and scope of the customer. So we want to make sure that we are really helping them make informed decisions and giving them the ammunition to say yes, no, or maybe later to the projects that we put before them. So another way to do this, again, leans back on that strategic plan. When we identify those business goals and business challenges, and we can properly align them to the projects and really help our customers see how the dots get connected between business and technology, then it becomes a much more simple process for them to go, yeah, you know what? That makes sense to me. Let's move forward on it. Yeah, I can see how I'm going to get a return on investment there. Yeah, I can see how it's going to improve my workflow and my productivity. Those drivers are necessary for them to feel comfortable in that decision and not just take us on blind faith. So trust, that's the number one thing that we need to take care of. The second thing that we need to take care of is driving education and helping the customers with expanding their knowledge. So, the CEO at their company is probably their business expert. The CFO is responsible for their finances and knows where their money is being spent and how it's helping the company. The chief operations officer is looking at workflow, streamlining process and productivity, and making sure, if you're a manufacturer, things are getting out the door on time, but not too early that we're spending and holding money too quickly. So these folks have their expertise. But where's the CIO in that equation, right? Well, that's where we come into play. That they don't have somebody really helping them with the understanding of what's needed from a security perspective. They don't know how to properly assess their internal technologies, right? How many times have you guys walked into a client's office and they inform to you that they've bought a new application, that they've started using it, and you have an integrated MFA or brought in single sign-on, or they've told you now have to put it in an infrastructure where there's no assets that can support the application. This might not be as much of a challenge today as it was back before cloud-based technologies really took fact. But these were things that I felt all the time when I was an MSP. So it's our responsibility that when they're looking to make decisions that are going to impact their business, that we're standing alongside them and at least giving them input on where it can intersect with technology, how it can maybe improve automation and workflow within their environments, and where the gaps might be. We should also be there to let them know whether or not those services will be secure. I'm seeing, we hear a lot about shadow IT now and these new technologies that are coming into the business without IT knowing about it. I'm not going to pick on marketing, but as part of part of our team that works on marketing, I know we love to try new tools, and customer data could potentially go into those tools if we're not doing it in a controlled pilot-like manner. So we need to be there and tell them where there could be security gaps that occur with new applications, or how to do a proper testing and make sure that if they do need to use real-time information on their clients, that there's a way to destroy that if they decide not to move forward with that application. So the question is, if the team is really run today by CEOs, CFOs, and COOs, who is helping them with risk mitigation? Who's helping them identify where risk might be in their environments that they can't see? Risk that isn't human by nature, but is built by the systems that they utilize. So we need to take that leadership position for them. Also, a new problem that's facing businesses today is really around the concept of cyber liability protection. We now need to get cyber liability insurance. And as for those of you that have been keeping up with the trades, it's becoming more and increasingly difficult for us to secure those policies. Part of it is there's no wrapper around it today. Now, some of the states out there are starting to take some strides in legislation. Me being in Connecticut, we're one of them. Connecticut, Ohio, and Utah were the first states that determined that if you use a cybersecurity framework like CMMC or CIS controls, implement those controls, and then demonstrate how you're supporting those controls over time. Should you have a breach event, you cannot be held punitively liable for those damages. That's huge, right? Because one, you don't have to worry and stay up all night wondering if that's going to put you out of business. Two, it's going to put you into a position of actually listening to your IT guys and doing more security best practices where you might not be willing to mitigate some of that risk today. And the third thing it's doing, and it's for the insurance company, let's be clear on that, but it's putting a box around what claims can be. So now we can say, hey, if the cyber liability event happens, this is how much it's going to cost to remediate the event. This is what the projected losses might be for the company in terms of business downtime. And this might be the cost for credit monitoring for anybody that might have had their information held on those systems. But no longer do the insurance companies have to worry that every company downstream might potentially sue you as well. Think about the Kaseya breach last year, not to pick on them, but they went from their breach to the customers they served to the customers their customers served. And if all those people were directly impacted immensely, you can imagine how the size and scope of what that penalty might be is very difficult. So we need to educate our customers on what the right steps are for to secure cyber liability protection. What are the rules in our state so we can help guide them to where they can better protect themselves and ensure they're going to not have a outage that can put them out of business. We have to be the ones that help them complete those forms. Too often I see those liability forms get checked the box everywhere, when in fact those things are not actually occurring. And soon as an event happens and those cyber insurance forensic teams come in, that's going to get exposed very quickly and maybe cut into or potentially negate your loss completely. So again, this is a new role that we need to take on as the service provider, but it's an opportunity for us as well. It's an opportunity for us to really cement the need for better security, guide them to what the right path's going to be, give them steps they can take themselves and build better policy procedures, get that education. And then of course that's going to support some of the projects that we need to do as well. Continuing in that vein, we would need to keep them up to date on threats that are out there, but help them filter through those threats as well. I know many of the users of vCIOToolbox are part of information sharing programs like CompTIA's ISAO as an example. These are great programs to not only help you filter the noise, but really get to the problems that are major today, understand how those problems are impacting different environments, how widespread it's really going to be, and then you can take that information and further synthesize it and distill it down that now you're sharing that with the customers that may be facing that risk. This also helps you kind of take that defensive position when your customers see something on the news at 7 o'clock that morning when they're drinking coffee and come back to you and say, hey, are we susceptible to this? What are we doing to prevent this? And it could be something that isn't relevant to them at all. Perfect example in my world for that was Log4j. When that came out, I had a number of you folks that use our platform rightfully coming to us and asking us what our preventative steps were. And by us understanding what that problem was and where it was impacting, we were able to say very cleanly and strongly and authoritatively, we do not have that problem because we're not using Java logging libraries as part of our application. We do not have that problem because we're not integrating with systems that have that problem in the direct connection to us. So this really allowed us to be very confident and forthright in our response to it too. And then this really calmed our client base down that we had their best interests covered. So this is where you can use that information to really direct it to the right customer and help them understand what's going on. So now the final thing that I'd like to close our training today with is really, a little bit about the vCIO mindset and how we need to be a coach from our leadership position to the customer as well. We interface with different areas of the team, right? Executive leadership, we play a part in their finance optimization. We usually are driving security best practices, oftentimes along with the CEOO, who obviously is also the person responsible for business operations. So when we think about our leadership style and how we can really be a good leader to our MSP community, we really have to take it from the mindset that when we're working with executive leadership, it's our job to help them understand those key stakeholders, what's going on and where can technology help them drive and improve their business? Where can it potentially lower cost? Where can it automate processes that are doing manual today or have a human element that can introduce error into the process? That's where we need to really be educating at the 50,000 foot level, the executive team, so then we can start looking at how we can proceed on some of these projects. With our financial partners, our CFOs and financial directors, we have to help them understand that, hey, IT is going to have a spend and this is what the budget's going to be, but these are the critical path items, the things you need to do each year, and then help them in sequencing out the way these products need to be rolled out over their 3 to 5 year plan. It's obvious we have refresh cycles that tie to obsolescence. We have our managed services that are proactively managing and monitoring things. These are all critical facets and definitely have high priority. But what about some of those other projects? Everything is not a firefight, right? So how do we help them understand which ones are more critical than others, where they can fit into the roadmap so the budgets can be better balanced, and how we can make sure that they're getting the best deals possible when it's time to execute? From a security perspective, we need to work with the entire organization, bringing them the training that they need so they can identify things like phishing emails or smishing events, or when they're going to a website that may be threatening, or what things that they shouldn't be doing on that. We need to work with the executive team to build out the policy and procedure to support that. Do they have proper AUPs? Do they have proper written information security policies to serve their business in a current format? When's the last time they've been reviewed, and how do we implement regular review cycles? We can really bring a layer of governance to their whole security program and help them understand it's not one of these set it and forget it type things. like most things technological aren't. You need to set it, care and feed for it, review it, and then re-engineer it over time. And we need to be able to drive that cycle through taking a leadership position with the client. And finally, the last thing is really understanding a bit about their business operations. We can't be a dictator in this role, right? We need to understand what their business uses, what the day-to-day operations look like. We need to hit the ground floor sometimes and really understand where the end users are having challenges that might not be being voiced to the executive team, but could be limiting productivity. I know a lot of you remember days of very long logins when machines would get resource low, or get aged out and get spyware, malware, and other things early on in those cycles into the system. That could be a 15-20 minute loss of productivity for an employee every day. You add that up over the course of the week, and you might have lost an hour and a half worth of productivity for each individual with that type of problem. So we got to listen to the community and really understand what's impeding them from doing the most optimal work they can each day for our business, and how can we potentially leverage technology to meet those needs. And then also understand what things aren't being utilized so we don't continue to invest in areas that really aren't being adopted by the client as well. These could be applications, these could be services. You just don't know. So that's something else we want to look out for. So those are some of the things that you should really consider from a leadership perspective when you're going out and meeting with your customers, as you're looking to build your relationship as account managers. And these things will shift the narrative of your strategic meetings or your business reviews from being perceived as pure sales events into being more of a structured consulting engagement where we're really reviewing how we're progressing against the storm and what's coming next. So I thank those of you for joining me today in the coaching piece of this puzzle. And now I'd really just like to open up the floor and see if anybody has any questions, concerns, or thoughts. For those that are joining on Zoom, you can jump that into either the chat or the Q&A. And for those of you that are attending via Facebook Live, please drop those into the comments, and we'll look to answer you as quickly as we can today. Questions, concerns, thoughts, folks. This, again, doesn't have to be about leadership. It could be anything that's on your mind. All right, I'm going to keep the floor open for another minute just to see if anybody does have any closing questions. And if not, we'll wrap up for this week. Again, this recording will be available to you within the Facebook group, the MSP Success Group, Customer Success Group. If you're not a member of that, love to have you join us in there. It's about we talk about things business development, account management, and security related, of course. This will also be available to you in YouTube, via YouTube. If you're not a subscriber to our YouTube page, we'll be sending a follow-up email to all attendees with a link, and subscribe, and you'll capture all the different content we have. Every Thursday, myself and Rachel James go live, and there we do talk about more of the things facing our industry and different concepts and concerns we can take. Right now, we are in the middle of our Office of the vCIO series, where we're really saying, hey, if you don't have a single individual that really can play the role of the vCIO, you haven't found that unicorn yet, come on in, and here's a way that you can divide those responsibilities and really take that approach through a shared responsibility approach across your team. This gets more and more people involved, more and more people engaged with the customer, and significantly shrinks some of the turnaround times on getting these QBRs done over time as well. So welcome you to join us there. This week we're going to be talking about the role of the engineer or technician as part of the TBR process. So with that said, I'm not seeing any questions or concerns rolling in. I'm going to do last call for questions. And if there are none, and it doesn't look like there are, I'm going to wish you all a great week. Go get them, get closer to your customers, and I look forward to seeing you next Tuesday. Same time, same place. Take care, folks.